Please welcome our esteemed speaker and expert, Idrees Mohammed. Idrees is a committed advocate for the advancement of compassionate leadership with 24 plus years of experience in educational leadership. Idrees is a highly engaged and collaborative leader who builds strong and credible relationships at all levels. He's a change maker who's demonstrated flexibility and drive to execute multiple projects with integrity and standards of excellence. We will explore the principles of inclusive leadership today, the key attributes of an inclusive leader, and discuss strategies for creating and maintaining a workplace where every individual feels valued, respected, and heard. Welcome, Idrees. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much as well. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. It's a pleasure, really. And I'm really excited to talk about inclusive leadership today. And we've had a lot of comments on LinkedIn, on our Instagram, and we really want to start asking the questions if you're okay with that. And welcome to today's live. And we won't really waste any more time. Let's delve right into the question that we have, our first question, if that's okay, Idrees.
Please. Yeah.
Perfect. Can you share your experience, Idrees, with the audience today and your background in inclusive leadership?
That's a very lovely question. I've been thinking about when we told me about, Idris, let's have this live on inclusive leadership. Now, for me, as a passionate, I introduce myself as annoyingly passionate about inclusive leadership. That's how I introduce myself. For me, I think I would say the journey actually started. This is way back in 2000, when I came to the UK to do my masters, and I remember the first class I walked in had 70 students from all over the world. So that was amazing. That was exciting for me to see those 70 students sitting down. One thing I noticed, Uzma, is every student from different country had a small pod, and something I realized, I think the first thing I did was started learning a little bit of saying hi in every language.
Wow, that's interesting.
So I think that was my first strategy. So you walk into the class and you see students from China, students from Jamaica, students from Nigeria, students from India, students from Nepal, students from Japan, for example, students from different I would say different parts of the world. So what I did was I said, how do I say hi in your language? So one thing I realized is as soon as you go up to the group, say hi in their language. If I'm not mistaken, it was Baoni in Nigerian, Swatikab, and automatically you would see them smile, people open up. And I think language is very powerful. Language is very powerful. So coming back to your question, that's how I started my journey, because I lived and I worked and I did my research, and I've studied in different parts of the world, UK, India, Saudi, UAE. And I think I love the cultural aspect of it. Yeah. So I think having inclusion, right? You got to live that journey. Yeah. And I think that is very powerful, because I'm a cultural intelligence facilitator as well. So I believe that culture, inclusion, leadership, they all marry in so well that if you literally, I mean, I would say somebody's put down, the language connects the world. And I would want to add that food also connects the world.
Yeah.
I love food. And I think this is one of the things what I've done is over the years, I used something called breaking the bread strategy to bring people together.
Yeah.
So I think that is also really powerful. Have I missed anything? Because
no. It's so interesting. I love how you're sharing your experience, your personal experience, because I believe language connects people, food connects people, and I absolutely agree. And this is beautiful what you're sharing. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. So what motivated you actually? What motivated you towards leadership, in particular?
This is again the first job in the UK I got was I started as a part-time teacher. Okay. And and then I moved into becoming a vice principal for that college. I ran that college for almost 11 years. We had hundreds of students. We had, almost, I think, 30, 40 teachers. We used to run all, foundation level programs. When I started, we did foundation courses. And when I was leaving, I think we even had master's level programs there, right? And one thing I realized in those 11 years, again, reflecting back to the experience in India, UAE, Saudi, what I realized was there should be more to leadership.
Yeah.
There should be something more to leadership, which brings people together, right? And I don't think because of that experience I had in that international college, I think that set up the foundation for my passion for inclusive leadership. When you actually meet people, when you share breaking the bread with people, when you sit down and you talk with people. And I think education is so powerful. People don't realize that. Somebody told me, I remember a couple of years ago, every person on earth had a teacher.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that means doesn't matter who you are, you went to that educational establishment for learning. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is the foundation ground for inclusive leadership. You start off in the schools, and then you can move into different disciplines, different domains, and different industries. So I think this is way back in, I would say, I think that also formed my rationale. This is way back in 2015 when I wanted to do my PhD in emotional intelligence. So my PhD is building up inclusive and organic organizations. So that is my PhD on, and I've been working on it for almost 9 years, trying to understand the cultural element, and I really get inspired by how people come together, and share those experiences. And I think that is what my inspiration has been: people focus, people for the people, by the people, to the people.
Wow, that's so interesting. Would you like to share a little bit more about that? Because I'm sure the audience would like to hear more. I certainly would.
Definitely. Over the years, what I've realized is, definitely we have this leadership strategy, leadership theories, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what happens is leaders, what they do is, say, imagine I'm giving a small scenario, right? So imagine I've gone on to a course on transformational leadership. So as soon as you go, you get all motivated and excited, you get that framework, and you try to bring that framework and you force it onto people.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. But again, it's not for the people, by the people, to the people. Okay. What you have done is you've gone onto a program, you got inspired or motivated on that program, and you're bringing a kind of like a standard model, and you're trying to feed that into your organization. That's not going to work. Right? It has never worked, and it will never work. Right? What I would say is, the other day, I think I was talking to one of the senior leaders of an organization, and I said to him, I made a joke out of it, and I said to him, Idrees, what do you understand by culture? And I said to him, the first thing you need to do is go to your staff restaurant. There is where the culture starts.
Yeah.
And I said, if these people are smiling, that means they like the sandwiches. If they are not, that means you need to change the coffee machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is really powerful, you see, because people imagine where can be, say, for example, let me put it this way, right? Where in an organization can be your whole self. You're not going to be your whole self sitting at the desk. You can't do that in the boardroom. You can't do that in that meeting. You're basically your whole self in the staff restaurant.
Yeah.
Right? And then you become candid. You have those discussions and all that, right? And what happens is, if people understand, right, that culture, people understand that leadership element, how to inspire, not motivate, right? Motivate for me is limited, kind of like it has a limited impact. When you have that inspirational model, you become that role model. Yeah. How do you inspire people? Okay. That sort of element of inspiring people, right? You need to understand their, for example, cultural elements. Okay. Right. There's something on in diversity and inclusion. When you talk about inclusive leadership, there's something called primary diversity, and there's something called secondary diversity. So primary diversity is what you see, right? Say, for example, your outer appearance. okay, what you're wearing, how you speak and so on, okay. And secondary diversity is linked to your kind of, neurodiversity, for example, okay, socioeconomic background, where you're coming from, where you live, your family, all the other hidden elements, okay. The organizations, what I've seen over 24 years, even in my research, is because of the limited time and resources, managers or leaders focus on primary diversity, right? So say, for example, I'm talking to you. Somebody walks in, oh, they're wearing hijab. Okay, right? Oh, this person is wearing a suit. This person is wearing glasses. And then you start forming an opinion about that person. Okay, right? But how many times have we stepped back? That's intentional inclusion. How many times have we stepped back and then taken that pause and said, I want to know a little bit more about Idrees.
Interesting.
I want to know a little bit more about where is he from? I'm giving a small scenario, right? His hobbies, okay? Is he married? Does he have children? Okay, it's like, say, for example, there was something I was asking in one of the sessions I delivered, and I said, do you think having 9 o'clock meetings is inclusive? Like 9 a.m. All right. Majority of the male audience, they said, yeah, it's okay. But the female audience were like, no, I have to drop my kids.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
That is inclusion there. Okay. As a manager, do you give that leeway of 15 minutes or half an hour? Don't start at 9 o'clock, start at 9:30, so that they can drop. Doesn't matter. It's, whoever that is, maybe they're single parents, for example, they would drop the kids, come back, take their time, and then you can start at 9:30. That small act of that intentional inclusion leads to inclusive workplaces.
Absolutely. And that's something I wanted to discuss with you today, Idrees, because we're really focusing on neurodiversity, neuroinclusion. How do you think, like you mentioned, the small, right? It is often the small. That's my point here, right? It's often the small accommodation, the small changes that can benefit the employees, for example, and get the team together. So what kind of examples would you like to share when it comes to neurodivergent employees?
One thing I've realized, or one thing when I was looking at the national research, this is I think it's one of the June, if I'm not mistaken, June 2022 research. It says that 40% of the people in the UK are neurodiverse.
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine having a team of 100 people, right? 40% are neurodiverse, right? Okay. Again, on a national level, what they've seen is people don't declare their disabilities.
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine, say, for example, let's take an organization. So 40 to 50% in your organization and your team, say 10 people, 40 to 50% say 5 people are neurodiverse.
Yeah.
Okay. When you ask them to declare, not even one person will tell you that they are, they have neurodiversity, they are neurodivergent, they have dyslexia, and so on. What I would, as a researcher, as a neurodivergent myself, right, would expect the managers, expect the organizations to be open about their neurodiversity if they are. Okay.
Interesting.
So what I would do is, what I have done, what I have implemented is, when I introduce myself, okay, remember the thing I was talking about, primary diversity and secondary diversity?
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm introducing myself, I would say, my name is this. I'll give you a little bit of my primary diversity, and I'll give you a little bit of my secondary diversity as well. Okay? So that, in a sense, is linked to vulnerable leadership, if you think about it. But it is so powerful. What I've realized is, when you open up as a senior leader saying, I'm dyslexic, okay, and I call it my superpower. So you will see the people smiling at you. They'll open up saying that, he's very open about, his neurodiversity. Okay. It doesn't have to be a taboo, right? Yes, I know there are challenges as well. Organizations, what they can do is support the challenges, okay, and strengthen their, kind of like, imagine if I'm given a small scenario. What I've realized as a neurodiverse person, as a dyslexic person, maybe, when I'm doing reports, maybe there might be spelling mistakes or grammatical mistakes. I'm typing the report. In my head, the way I type the report, in my head, I read it like a proper sentence. But when it comes out and I read it again, there are some mistakes in there, right? Okay. So what I would expect, or what I would want the organizations to understand is, Idrees has this thing. Okay. We understand that's a challenge, but what can he bring to the team? Right. I love presentations. I love infographics. I love mind map. I love sharing my research. Okay. So rather than focusing on your challenges, focus on the strengths and support the challenges, and hence again inclusion.
And I'm smiling here because if you're focusing on the strengths, imagine what talent you could bring into the organization.
It's like you have unlocked that potential.
You've
unlocked that potential. As a matter of fact, I think one of the surveys I did nationally, and what I've realized is flexible working. Flexible working has been very powerful for neurodivergent staff, right? And active listening, I would say. Active listening, because listening with fascination, or listening with intent, it's called. Again, a part of that neuro diversity discussions, or inclusive discussions, or inclusive leadership. Listening with intent. Don't listen to answer, listen to understand. I was reading this book on inclusion on purpose. I'm forgetting the author's name, Ruchika, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So what she says, what she was saying is, a lot of times we think, or we believe, when we hear the word communication, we think communication is speaking. Actually, communication is listening. So when you take the journey from speaking to listening, is inclusion.
It's a different ballgame, absolutely. And I think that's something, as a coach, we've been trained, I guess, to do that. Active listening is so important. I think once you start actively listening to another person, there's so much you can, both benefit from, right? So I believe you it's not just the listening, but it's the active listening that makes a difference. So thank you, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's huge. What do you think, though, Idrees? What role do you think leaders can play to kind of bring in that meaningful change?
For me, I think leadership is culture, and culture is leadership.
Interesting.
Because leaders are the ones who define the culture. That's very powerful. And a lot of times what we think is, when leaders come and say to you, oh, it's the management. Who is the management? It's you. It's you. Right? Okay. So what I feel is, there is a need for us to embrace. Okay? It's a very important, that first aspect of embracing that we are all biased. That's how we are designed.
Absolutely.
We are all biased. Okay. So I know that sometimes people of color are also biased for the other people of color as well. It's normal. So what do? Is you step back a little bit and you say, I'm working with this diverse team. What do I do? Right? What steps do I take? And I think the first step is actually investing in secondary diversity in your team. So there's a strategy by one of the authors, I think I was looking at. It's called Smart Charter. So what you do is you put up a Smart Charter. In that Smart Charter, for every team member, if they are okay to share, you would put your primary diversity points and you put your second diversity points. And that team shares. Okay. So I would say, Idrees, I'm neurodiverse, and I'm just giving a small scenario. I hate waking up in the morning. I'm just going to small scenario, right? So please don't message me 7 a.m, expect me to do a report for you. Okay. And afternoons, because something I've seen when I was talking to one of the specialists in autism, what she said was the weather and the time of during the day as well impacts your working pattern, right? So I've realized that sometimes early mornings and late evenings I might be grumpy. And maybe in the afternoons you would see my full potential. Okay. right? But for others, sometimes it's morning is really good for them.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes, people are really charged up in the evenings. I'm giving a small scenario, right? So I think having a little bit of understanding, right, about how your team works, right?
Yeah.
How open are you with your team? And that is very powerful, investing in your secondary diversity.
Yeah. And that, I think the word that comes to my head is flexibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Being flexible about
definitely.
it. Yeah.
They're flexible about it. What I've realized over the years again is pandemic has made it worse.
Wow.
We hardly understood how to work with people. We hardly had the grasp of that compassionate leadership, inclusive leadership, and COVID came in.
Yeah.
And that has kind of like that now that hybrid working model, online, offline, and it's kind of like threw us off, I think, right? And now we are trying to understand the challenges of, again, now what I've realized is people are a little bit more open about the neurodiversity now. Okay? So now you have kind of that EDI, inclusion, equality, diversity, inclusion challenge, where you feel that how do you challenge or how do you build up a culture of belongingness? Okay, so inclusive leadership comes in, and belongingness aspect comes in, and then you have your neurodiversity, right? You have different people from cultural aspect, people from different races and ethnicities and all that. So I think it is very powerful for us it is the right time for leaders to invest in inclusive leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings me to a question here. Anima, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Apologize if I haven't. Are companies and organizations becoming more aware of neurodivergence and compared to 5 years ago? And
Yes.
what changes have they made in the workplaces?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I've seen over the years is a lot of staff networks championing disability.
Okay, good.
Right? So now there is an ethos, there's a culture now of promoting ERGs, employee resource groups, which are called staff networks, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things I've realized is when I've spoken to public sector and private sector, every organization has their networks. Like, for example, ethnic minority network is there, women network is there, disability network is there. Okay, some organizations call it ability network. They don't with the disability, it's ability network. So what I've realized is having a resource group like this, okay, helps organizations. Okay, so there's a whole element of I'll share that with you. There's something I recently worked on a project where organizations have this. When you're filling up an application form, when you're applying for a job, it says declare your disability. Okay, there's a negative connotation to the word declare, right? So what I started championing was, how about let's change it to share your disability or share your ability.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's more inclusive. So coming back to her question, I think organizations understand that it's about time, right? And I think people think that COVID was, yes, definitely COVID has its own impacts. There were people, I lost family back home in India as well, but if you look on the other side, I think COVID has put pressure on organizations to get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And now they're focusing on inclusion, thinking about neurodiversity.
Yeah.
They are focusing on that. And if your organization is not, then you need to talk to your HR team or your workforce team. Definitely.
Absolutely.
You need to be the champion then. Don't look at others to lead. Why don't you start? Have those discussions in your teams, saying that, tell your manager, if you're a manager, again, that's very good. Champion that. As a leader, you can champion it. If you're not a leader, still you can champion it. For me, everyone is a strategic leader. Again, that is when you're linked to, when you talk about strategic leadership, because every member of the organization is linked directly or indirectly to strategy. Hence, everyone is a strategic leader.
Yeah.
Right. So, you can champion it.
Absolutely. That's amazing. No, thank you so much. And we're championing it, right? How did I pronounce
There
that
you go.
properly? We
There you
are,
go.
because we now are launching a new course
Yes.
on inclusive leadership, and Idrees will be the trainer, the facilitator for this. So we're really excited. I just wanted to share, really what you have in mind when you're delivering, and how you were when you were creating the course. What was really the main focus and the highlight of the course for you?
The main focus was for me is again inclusion and belongingness. That is
Yeah,
the golden thread.
yeah,
That is the golden thread. I think the other day I was talking to somebody and I said, how do you drill down um, the word inclusion
mm,
or belongingness? Like, how do you simplify it? So then I
yeah.
started brainstorming with myself. Sometimes, that's I think these are the benefits of being neurodiverse. You talk to yourself. So I
We
was
all
like,
do. We all do, Idris, don't worry.
so I think what I came up was kindness.
Yeah,
That's the word. That's the key. Kindness, right? Kindness for yourself, kindness for people at work, kindness for the society you live in, kindness for your own family.
yeah,
Okay?
absolutely.
So if that is the thread, the golden thread, what you turn to do is you start sharing. Okay, you start to making that, I think, intentional effort, I would say, right?
I like
If
that. Mm.
if I am, I'm just, the way they say, how can I be the best version of myself today?
Yes.
That is the question.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that is the reflection. That is the reflection for inclusive leaders,
Yeah.
right? Okay, if I have done this, now what do I do next? Like, for example, if I have, it's like the question earlier people were asking, like, if you have staff networks, good, champion the disability agenda. If you don't have, ask them why, and then champion it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think that is what you need, those discussions, open discussions. I was reading somewhere, become comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I think that is what motivated me to put that course together, because it's
Amazing.
about time we need to talk about inclusion.
We do.
Doesn't matter where
Absolutely.
you are. Doesn't matter where you are. Let it be hospitals, schools, anywhere, right? From local councils to private organizations, voluntary sector, third sector, private sector. We need to talk about that. We need leaders to be accountable and responsible for
Absolutely.
their own actions. Am I inclusive?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And it's so important to get that message across and get that message out, really. And this is why we're excited to have this course on board, and we're excited to, have it now we're ready to deliver, right? So we're ready to deliver. Idris is available to deliver. And we're excited to do that. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the common challenges maybe the leaders would be facing on a daily basis. But what do you think they would be?
Now, I think when I started, this is again way back in 2015, when I was writing my first chapter
Yeah.
on in leadership. The first introduction, when I wrote that down, the first line, I'm just trying to recall, leadership has been in the history
Mm,
one of the biggest problems, or should I say, an area which has not been resolved yet.
mm,
From the time of prophets, for example, to today, whenever we look at politics, for example,
mm.
okay, look at organizations. One of the research talks about, they did a survey and they found out that inclusion was the biggest reason why people left their organization. Okay, and another thing is, people don't leave organizations, people leave leaders, your managers. It's not the
Interesting.
organization,
Yeah,
it's actually the leaders, because your manager is the one who represents you, right?
absolutely.
Okay,
Mm.
I don't know, say, imagine if I'm working for an organization, right? I don't understand the whole, I'm not going to go around, talk to 1,000 people or 2,000, 10,000 people. My direct contact person is that manager. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
this person will give me the should I say, that holistic view of the organization.
yeah.
Okay, If he's nice, I'll say this is a nice company. Simple as that.
Yeah.
If he's caring, I'll say this company is caring. Okay, so I think these are the things. Sorry, I think you have to repeat that question because
the challenges. Yeah, sorry, the challenges. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you're saying because it's if the leader's representing technically the company, you're going to say if the leader's a certain way, then you're going to say the company's that way. And that's a very interesting point because that has a huge responsibility on the leaders.
I think this is one of the challenges then.
Yeah,
if you link back to the challenges, this is
absolutely.
the worst challenge because you hold the goodwill of the company in your hands.
That's huge. That's a huge responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
You're playing a role model.
Yeah.
You're playing a strategic leader. You're playing an operational leader. You're playing a transformational leader. You're playing a mentor and a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge.
You're everything all in one. You know, and I expect. Imagine I'm giving a small scenario. In the morning, I'm running late. I call my manager up and I say, oh, you know what? I'm stuck in traffic, for example. Or I say, oh, I was dropping my little one and I'm going to be running late.
Yeah.
What is the other person going to think? The first thing which comes to your mind, that is leadership. Idrees, it's okay. Take your time. I want you to be safe. Okay, please take your time. I want you to be safe. If there's any urgent meeting, I'll look into it. Please let me know. Thank you for keeping me informed. You see that?
Yeah.
That is what the challenge is.
Yeah.
And what we do is normally 90% of the times, leaders react. I told you to be here at 9. We have an important meeting. Why are you late?
Yeah.
Can you make sure? That's how people react. I mean, there's kind of like, it's not about bad leadership, but this is how the response is. We are designed for that. You know, that fight mode.
Yeah.
We are designed. Our system is designed to do that. Okay. Yeah. That is what inclusive leadership is, where what you do is intentional inclusion. You stop. You know, you stop your urge to say, Idrees, you know, why are you late? No, I understand, Idrees. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Please drive safely, and I'll see you when you get here. So that actually stops my anxiety. You know, I'm already feeling bad, right? I'm already feeling that, you know, that job commitment I have. I'm running late, right? I know that I should have been there at 9 o'clock, and I'm really sorry. The last thing you do is again bombard me with more guilt, like kind of like, you know, put me in that guilt situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's inclusive leadership.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the challenge leaders have to face. And another thing I've realized is the trust. And I remember an organization I used to work for. This is a couple of years ago, when we went on from offline to online mode, you know, when we had this COVID, right? A senior leader, CEO, told me, I don't believe people can work at home. I need to see them in the office. Okay. He goes, no, I don't believe that, you know, remote work or hybrid work in my you know, experience, it doesn't exist. What does that show you as a challenge? That shows the leader is not trusting their team.
Yeah.
You know? So if I come if I come in the office, you have your camera on and you're watching me, does that mean that I'm working?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Where is that accountability, responsibility, that trust, that inclusive environment where you actually feel that it's okay, Idrees, I trust you. Okay. Please. There was a research I think I was reading, and one of the senior CEOs, they said, I don't care about the time. So imagine if you're leaving 2 hours early, you let me know saying that I need to sort something out, I'm going. But I know that she will make sure, I've given her a task, and she'll make sure that in that week she will complete it.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter. I can be sitting in the office for 8 hours doing nothing. Okay. Or I can be home using half the time and finishing the task.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Right. But again, at the same time, reflecting on the mental health. Because if you're forcing me to come to the office for 8 hours, okay, you know, you start that tug of war with your employee, okay, and they might not be happy about it, right? Give me my space, empower with them with their tools, and they will do it for you.
They will do it. Absolutely. I was going to ask you the next question, strategies, and I think you've kind of already touched on that, so I won't really spend much time talking about strategies. Just really, if you can give us some examples, I guess, of, well, yeah, one or two more strategies, I guess, if you can, if that's okay.
Yeah,
And if
no,
not, we
sure.
can, yeah.
Definitely. I think one of the key elements I was looking at is emotional and cultural intelligence.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because over the years, again, leaders have lost the art of empathy.
Yeah.
A survey by Jamil Zaki, he has a lovely book on War for Kindness. He says there's a research which they did in, I think, 1970s, and they did a research in 2009, I think. So they found that the empathy has gone down. So they found that people were, say, for example, I'm giving a small scenario, right? People were 70 to 80% empathetic about certain situations, and that has gone down to 30, 40%.
Yeah.
So we have lost the art of humility. We have lost the art of empathy. Okay. And I think empathy is a muscle. We need to practice it on daily basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And how do you think we can practice that, Idrees? Sorry, I'm interjecting here. How do you think? Because it's really interesting. You know why it's interesting? Because I recently wrote an article for the CPD website on empathy, and I compared empathy to a baby's cry. So, for example, when a baby's crying, we automatically empathize or feel bad, and we're worried or concerned. There's so many different feelings that can come into play when another baby, not our baby, somebody else's baby, right? Because we don't know why they're crying, or we don't recognize that particular cry.
Exactly.
So we do naturally feel worried or concerned or confused about what kind of cry that may be. But when our baby's crying, it's different because we know exactly what cry. Is it a hunger cry? Is it because they're tired? Is it because they just need a bit of attention? So we understand their different cries that they have. But when it comes to other babies crying, we have this level of empathy. But the question now is, and it's interesting that you've mentioned this, do we still have it, or do we need to practice it again?
No, I think we innately, I think there was an article I wrote on LinkedIn about, there was a video of the kids were asking each other. I think the question was, there were different kids from different ethnicities, and they said, what makes you different? Right? And the kids were looking at each other. They said, oh, she talks a lot. They didn't talk about race. They didn't talk about appearance. They were like, kids were innately, kind of like reflecting on maybe, oh, this person is, he likes broccoli. I don't like broccoli. See, that is how. So what I feel is, as we grow, right? As we grow based on our lived experiences, we lose that empathy. It's lost, simple. It's lost somewhere, right? Okay. So one thing, I'll come back to that strategy, but the way you are asking me is, one is we need to exercise it more. Okay. It's there somewhere. So we did end up peeling the onion kind of strategy, right? One of the hospitals in America, I think they won the award, one of the best awards in the country that was in the United States. So what they have is practicing empathy. They have a strategy called 5 and 10. Okay, 5 and 10. What 5 and 10 means is, if you're 5 meters away from a person, doesn't matter who it is, patient or colleague, you actually stop, make an eye contact, smile, and have a genuine discussion of how are you. Okay. And you're 10 meters away, smile and eye contact.
Interesting.
Look at the person, smile, eye contact. How many times have you walked into an organization, you want to look at people and they'll just put their head down and walk away?
Yeah, true. Absolutely.
So
no, I agree.
How do you build it? 5 and 10.
Yeah. I like that one. I'll have to keep that in mind. Really, it's and I think it's so important. And I love this topic, and this is a topic in itself, empathy. And I've just realized it's we're 40 minutes into our conversation, and we planned 30 minutes, so we can talk forever. Last question I have for you, Idrees, is how do you envision the impact this course will have on the audience?
It's a very powerful course for me. I think it sums up my journey, lived experience for all 24 years. That's one thing. Because I think if you are selling a product, you need to believe in that product.
Yeah,
and I passionately believe in inclusion, right? Now, this transcends into race, equality, and your neurodiversity as well. I think to start off with that, neurodiversity is a very powerful element there. Right? And I think leaders need to embark on that journey. And embarking on that journey, this will be your first step. That inclusion leadership will be your first step on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I'm really excited. I could really talk forever. We have Anima saying, I think the smiling, talking, and eye contact is different based on neurodiversity. Absolutely. And culture too, having worked in global settings. I agree. Absolutely. It is. And we can, again, talk about this for much longer. But we need to wrap up now. Let's have another chat some other time. It's been great. Idrees, thank you so much. And thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me and sharing my passion.
You're welcome. Absolutely. And we'll have to say goodbye. And we will absolutely have some further discussions on this topic in the future.